Good afternoon, everybody. This is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time being here, thank you so much for stopping by. I talk about a lot of things about the Idaho 4, current events, concerts, substance abuse, life skills, a lot of things that can help people out if they're struggling or they know somebody who's struggling with certain issues. Today, I'm going to create a podcast. We're going to talk about criminal intent and motive. So we're into Monday mania. I've spoke about these things a little bit in some of my other videos, but I really wanted to take a little time today and discuss it even further. Since I'm the only one on this podcast, I'd like to show a video from Law and Crime and then discuss it. So hold on a second. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Monday. If it isn't wonderful for you, I hope it gets better for you because it's not always great for some people, but you make the best out of what you have. Here we go.
And there's also been speculation about the motive here. Some say, well, maybe he got dissed by one of the victims here, but the diss doesn't mean that he was dissed to date somebody and she didn't want to. It could also be a diss to him because of who he is. It could be anything, couldn't it, Julie Renderman?
Right. And remember, motive, they're not required to prove motive, but motive is certainly helpful for a jury to understand why it would be that an individual who hadn't committed such a heinous crime before entered into a home and decided to take the lives of these young women and man. But I do think that the prosecution is going to have a theory that they're going to bring along with them throughout this case in terms of his motive, whether it be stalking or obsession or whatever it is in regards to at least one of the women that live there. And I think that is going to be something that you are definitely going to hear about throughout the trial.
Okay, as you heard her say, a motive doesn't have to be proven in a trial, which is correct. I'll put up here, let's talk about criminal intent and motive. Criminal intent is basically the theories of how you intend to carry this out. In this case, it was speculated that he intended to carry out his crime because he was stalking these individuals on social media. So his motive would have been, since I'm stalking these people on social media, which one am I infatuated with? Which one am I lusting after? Which one has rejected me? Which one has caught me stalking them if I am stalking them? So the motive is based on the intent. And there's one thing that hasn't really been proven due to the gag order, and a lot of creators haven't really talked about it, has been the criminal intent. If they have, I haven't heard about it. So if you have, kudos to you. I know y'all been doing this a long time, longer than me. I haven't had this channel very long. So not putting down any creators or any commentators. But think about how you would intend to get your life from one dimension to the other, because he had a successful career as a student going on. I mean, he was getting degrees and he was advancing his studies. He was about to be a doctor, he was about to get his doctorate, his PhD, where he could have been a professor, he could have been somebody that wrote books, he could have been in the field, he could have been this, that, and the other. One thing I never really hear about, and I want to talk about this a minute, is the age of Mr. Koberger. He's 28 years old. And if you're watching this, well, he's not 28 anymore. He's probably 29 or even close to pushing 30. Um, think about when you were 28 years old. Would it have been logical for you to intentionally have a crush on a 21-year-old? That's 7 years. What would they have in common with you? How would you have been able to maneuver that? You know, at 28, I was pulling, I was still pulling 19, 20, 21, 22-year olds. Obviously, I didn't have this going on. I didn't have, a lot of things that the life and age brings upon you. But one thing that you have to notice, that him being successful at his criminal studies, he had to have a type. And I've talked about stalking in the video that I created, I think yesterday. These are all starting to run together. But he had to have a type that he was either attracted to or fixated on and became obsessive over. Which one was it? Was it even the females? And I'm not trying to be funny here. I'm not trying to be funny. There's nothing to say that he wasn't attracted to Ethan. And that's a silly theory. I know it is. There's nothing to base it on. There's no interaction with him that people have spoke about. There's no kind of communication that we know about. But people immediately assumed that he was an incel, that he was stalking one of the females. What if that's not the case? What if his object of affection, his intent, was to show one of the other females who lived what type of person he really was? Like maybe they had a problem with the roommate that were murdered. You hear that word maybe? That's speculation. That's speculation. Possibly. Unfounded. But if there was a problem with the other roommates, he could have been the one who steps up and be the savior. Well, let me take care of him for you. I don't like that type of person anyways. You and I have been hanging out, your boyfriend's not in town. The other one, Bethany, you just never really heard of a boyfriend. Maybe it was impressing one or two by doing the dirty work. Because in the criminal logic of things, if your mind is not clear, women manipulate men. And if you say no, that's not true, then I'll call your bluff. I really will. Because they manipulate men through sexual desire or promises of. So if this individual, Mr. Koberger, allegedly was not very good with the women, and he had to derive a life from afar on the internet. If he did manage to input himself into the surviving roommates' lives, then maybe that gave him a sense of belonging, acceptance. Because one thing that I've heard, and here's more speculation, because it's unfounded, it's just people talking, is if you've ever lived with somebody, if you've ever had a roommate, or you shared a house with family or whatever, there comes a time when people outstay their welcome. They start to get on each other's nerves. They start to have the same issues over and over. And there's a lot of things that happen that many people may or may not have been aware of. So if there were some witnesses in this case, 400 to be exact, then maybe you're going to hear about some disagreements from the surviving roommates with the roommate that were passed away. Maybe you're going to hear about cat fights, things that happened that nobody knew about, only the surviving roommates and the ones that passed away. And here's a question that I've never really heard answered either or even asked. I've heard it from newscasters and stuff, but not really the online community. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. There's never really been a question as why or what caused Ethan to be staying over there with Anna. He had his golf clubs over there. He had his belongings over there. He was there the night of the murders. Was it to protect her? Was it to protect himself? Was he trying to escape something that was going on at the Sigma Chi house that he didn't want to be a part of? What caused him to stay over there as much? I know if I had a girlfriend in college, which I did, she would come to my off-campus home, so I guess it's logical. And she would stay the night, and she wouldn't sleep in the dorms or any of that. So yeah, it's logical. But all of a sudden, I mean, it just makes no sense. But I'm sure one day it will. One day when the trial is here, all of this will make sense. We'll get those answers that we've been asking all these months. Supposedly Xana had her dad come look at the lock due to people going through her room and stuff. What was it in her room that people were constantly going in and messing with? In the pictures that are on the internet, that are on their social medias, the rooms look like a setup for selfies, a setup for party photos, just a setup for a backdrop for something to shoot a picture of, with a background. So what was it that was being taken or messed with in her room? So she had to get her lock changed or lock fixed or whatever because she was tired of people going through her stuff. That's totally understandable. So, intent. We've never been told whether Maddie's door was unlocked. We've never been told if Kaylee's door was unlocked the next morning when they found a dog in there. Or did some of the friends know the lock numbers and assisted in getting the emergency first responders in there to assist the dog? You know, the front door was obviously open. Everybody could see as they walked past that the door was open. So that wasn't a big deal, I guess, because it was wide open. Who opened it? Who knows? How long had it been open? Who knows? And they've never really discussed what happened to the DoorDash delivery. Was it left on the doorstep? Was it in the house? Was it in Xana's room? Because I don't believe that the Jack in the Box bag that the whole world is seeing on the counter, I don't believe that's the DoorDash delivery. I don't believe that they would have left it there being such important evidence that they would have just left it on the counter with a Starbucks cup and all that other stuff. You would think that they'd go through it seeking fingerprints, DNA, all that good stuff. Was there any shoe prints that were left in the kitchen? They said they found one latent shoe print, one. But if you believe that, then I got some ocean front property in Arizona. I think a lot of individuals believe what has been told to them as concrete. Why would the cops lie? Well, cops lie. Not that I'm anti police here, but as I've been reading in my workbook, there was a chapter that stated, sometimes police embellish information or they keep information from the public so that they're kind of holding what they know and what they don't know. They're going to put a little bit out there. It's like a poker game. You don't want everybody to know what you have, and maybe they're going to give you some stuff that you didn't have based on something that you said. I hope that makes sense. So the fact that they said, we just have one latent shoe print. We didn't have any more shoe prints anywhere in the house.
Remember the night before there was a party of 150 plus people in that house? Where did all those shoe prints go? Where did all that DNA go?
Do you really believe that the motive was just to kill these individuals and be done with it? Or was there an intent to build up and eventually that became the motive? I'm going to intend to get even with you. I'm going to intend to scare you. I'm going to intend to show you your wrongs. I'm going to intend to get revenge. I'm going to intend to get my money from you. I'm going to intend to just kill you. Because you have a belief that you're better than me, and in my mind, No one is better than me, so therefore I'm going to show you by my motive of killing you, my beliefs. Once they dig into Brian's history, what they already probably did, they see a lot of patterns there. One thing that you fail to understand is we are creatures of habit. So whatever we've done in our lifetime, it usually comes back in another way, either as explosive or maybe not as problematic, but the best precursor of future experience is past mistakes. You will always repeat. History repeats itself. So you ask yourself, okay, well, what was his intent? What was his intent? What was he intending on proving? Maybe his intent was to prove that he could do this. And his motive was, I got rid of the people that I singled out to take out in the story. The gashes don't match. The bodies were repositioned. I've done videos on this. Do you really think that somebody who's going to kill somebody is not going to think about all this? If it's not a K-bar knife, what kind of knife is it? One that rips and tears. One that you can hold while you're potentially holding or fighting this person off. One that's not going to slip. One that's not going to tear your glove. One that's not going to injure you. I heard on a channel, I think it was the Chaos Sector, I'm not sure, because I watch a lot of their stuff. But I'm not sure, so don't quote me. When they were looking at Brian's hands, when it was a month later, and they got pulled over in Indiana, what you didn't see is scars. You didn't see scars on the hand. Look at that scar right there. See that scar? That scar's been there for about 30-something years. So if you've ever been hurt or injured and you had scar tissue build up, that doesn't go away. It turns your skin pigment a different color. And if you're lighter color, you can almost see it as splotchy skin spots or whatever. And it was a month that went by before he was apprehended. And in that month, do you think that they were just going on what we've focused on as far as the PCA and Linda Lane footage and Taylor Avenue footage and the noises that you hear and the presumption that this person saw this person at this time, the Banfield cam, all this stuff that people have been focusing on. And as I say, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're creating a case to try somebody for the death penalty, you're going to want some solid, connect the dot, factual, non circumstantial evidence. They may rid the IgG stuff, the DNA stuff, they might throw that away because it's too much of a hassle. The pings on the towers, they might not even need it. But if they got his car on camera, they have him anywhere on camera at that time frame, especially dressed in black with a mask covering his mouth and nose, and all you could see is the bushy eyebrows. That's almost as good as the smoking gun. Because how can you explain being in that neighborhood for what other reason than to either get drugs, use drugs, or attend a party? I don't know very many people other than Elliot Rodger. I didn't even know him, but based on what I've studied about him, he's the only one that I've really noticed that documented he rode around looking and envying people for their lifestyles. Now, if Brian's an incel like they say he is, then possibly he would ride around to feed his anger, to relinquish his wrath upon humanity once he reached that point of the plan. One more thing that I've always thought about, because I've listened to countless serial killer interviews and read PCAs, and I've studied a little bit on serial killers. I'm not an expert by no means. But one thing that you never hear this was a crime of passion. You never hear, just like that lady said in that video a while ago, maybe he was dissed. I've never heard a news anchor use that word dissed before, but maybe he was dissed. And she said dissed for other reasons, for just being who he is. Now use your logical brain, not the speculatory brain, not the facts that you don't have. Which isn't very much, because there's so conflicting reports. He was a bully, he got bullied, this, that, and the other. He didn't know how to interact with women. He got 2 women's phone numbers. He was friendly. He was cuddly. He was trustworthy. He was that. We're all that. How many one-dimensional people do you know? We're chameleons at best. Just because I'm friendly to you doesn't mean that I might not bully another person. Call them out their name. Make their life soul that I am. Not the friendly guy that's going to do anything for you. But it's annoying a little bit whenever people put most serial killers that I've researched were very outgoing. That was part of the plan. That was part of the manipulation to get the person to trust you to be able to do what you wanted to do. I'm going to do a podcast on Eileen Wuornos. She was the Florida person the female that was a prostitute, and she killed like 11 men. I'm going to do some research on her, and I'm going to do a podcast on her. Do you think that people are immediately going to trust you if you're kind of creepy, if you're standoffish, if you have no kind of game whatsoever, or you have no personality whatsoever? I've known people that have that personality down pat, but when they're away from people, man, they're just who they are, assholes. Especially Ricatic. You don't know who the hell you are, or what you're about, or how long you'll be this person anyways. Your thoughts are always everywhere, so you're trying to be who everybody else wants you to be, not really who you who you know yourself to be. 28 years old. So he probably went to rehab about 24, 25. So his brain hadn't fully matured yet. So he was cleaning his life up. So on average, probably 3 years. And they say the average 3 to 5 years it takes to get your brain to start functioning right. So in those 3 to 5 years, all the effort that he put into his studies was being rewarded. That was his motive. I want to be a forensic guy. My intent is to do better, to motivate myself to be a cop one day. And all these serial killers that I've researched, other than who was that? Danny Rowling, the Gainesville Ripper. I did a video on him. He did lash out at people when he was rejected. And fixation and obsessiveness, abandonment issues, the failure issues, this, that, and the other. There was in him, but they're not all the same. They're not all the same. That's what makes it so difficult to spot one. You know, there's some people that would probably say what, but I was so lost that I didn't have a clue who I was, much less where I was going. My intent was just trying to make it through the day. My motive was to get as many people to like me as I possibly could. And if I could get other stuff along the way, then that was just a bonus. So think about this whenever this individual is going to college and he's trying to better his life, and people are intending to bring him into a circle he didn't belong. Maybe they weren't mean to him. Maybe they were very accommodating. Maybe he partied at that house before. Maybe he was the cleaner. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. Maybe he didn't have any motive or any intent whatsoever other than to get money, take care of the job, get these people out of the way, and move on with his life. Because in essence, that seems what he did. If he did it, he went to his hair appointment, he went to his doctor, he didn't go to class on that Monday. But as I've heard, that Monday was a holiday or something anyway, so maybe he wasn't supposed to be there. But when your life is falling apart, he was getting in trouble because he was not doing his PA or TA stuff as good as he could have done. He was going overboard. He was grading hard. He was having issues with females, this, that, and the other. So when his life is falling apart, where's he going to turn that stress, angst, anger, frustration, overwhelmingness? Going for a drive sounds great. Hell, I've driven many a miles just to clear my head. I've taken trips just to clear my head, not even intending to do anything once I got there, just to get there. I'm not saying that's what he did, but you know what? Driving does clear your head. It helps you forget about what you got going on and what's potentially going to happen to you. I think he was in damage control at that point. He was trying to hang on to what he went out there for, but yet everything was falling in around him, and he was still trying to be in control because that's what individuals of that mindset try to do, they try to stay in control. One day, that Sorry about that. I don't know. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened to the internet. It just kicked me off between that and the dog. Just constantly dealing with stuff. I don't know how much y'all heard, but like I was saying, maybe the jogging, the boxing, the fixation on his studies, maybe that became not enough, and something switched off inside of him and switched on. And then he was fixated on finding out what it'd be like to take the lives of another person. Maybe that wasn't the only house he was stalking. Maybe he was stalking some in Pullman. We'll never know till the trial or otherwise. Lately, they've been talking about the person who supposedly broke into her house, rearranged stuff. She looked at him as her Superman. He he put up a camera. He knew the password, so he was spying on this individual, supposedly selling her nudes or posting them online. Just crazy, crazy stuff. Um, but don't get it twisted. I mean, when you're dealing with a criminal-minded person, just because he was that intellectual on the side of criminology, how do you explain chemists or chemistry students to go to college for no other reason than to learn how to cook meth, to cook, to make pills, to make all kinds of stuff to get rich? Not really caring about working in a lab to doing it for good, but to use it to their advantage. So think about that whenever you're getting told about the criminal justice degree and this, that, and the other. Maybe all that was just the front to eventually see if he was able to turn himself around. You know, therapists, a lot of times they go into being therapists to try to fix themselves, not really caring about fixing other people, but wanting to fix themselves to find the answers so they can get to feeling better. Maybe he was doing that so that he could suppress that urge that wanted to hurt people. We'll never know until the trial and if it's released what he'd been dealing with most of his life. All this other superficial on the surface shit doesn't matter because it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't. Those 4 are gone. And for whatever reason, whether they knew it was coming, whether Maddie started the ball rolling by telling somebody everything, or maybe one of the surviving roommates set it off. Who knows? Somebody knows. Somebody knows what went down. Somebody knows how it happened. I'm sure a lot of people know. You can't keep that kind of secret amongst people unless they're not wanting to get involved, because as you heard in the very beginning, snitches get stitches. You heard that a lot in the beginning. So that was just being thrown out there that if you talk about it, we're going to hurt you. Or you'll possibly end up like these 4 did. That's just a weird place up there right now. I mean, hopefully answers come and hopefully people start to heal finally. And then on to the next one. This has been huge because there's no answers. There's no pieces to put things together. But be smart about it when you think about the things that you hear. Is it just a fake piece to hold things together that aren't stable? Or did this piece lead to this piece to lead to this piece to lead to this piece? Because you have all this information and you can't deny the truth. I'm not dogging anybody. I'm really not. I could care less about their thoughts or their beliefs. You know, I have only one person to hold accountable, and that's myself. And I'm sure many people will probably doubt what I have to say, and it doesn't matter to me. Because in the end, nobody really knows until they go to trial, unless they've uncovered some information from some kids or paid some kids that have told them stories about what potentially happened. So they think they're further along the line than everybody else in the world. And in reality, what'd that make you? Nothing. But somebody with some information. Is that gonna help you convict, Brian? Or is that gonna help you exonerate Brian? Possibly not, because I can almost guarantee that the evidence that they have against this man is solid as stone. He wasn't as good as he thought he was. And if he wasn't the killer and there were other people, then he's taking the fall for other people. But one way or the other, he'll either get the death penalty, he'll plead for life in prison without it, or he'll narc on the real killers, one or the other. Or he'll go to his grave never telling the truth about what happened, only living in the notoriety of him being on everybody's mind every day, 24/7, having them talk about him and what could have been. Eventually, we have to move on. We got to withdraw. We got to find a way to to just let it be. I'm trying myself. But if you like what I just had to say, leave a like, tell your friends. It's about investigative research. It's not about speculation. Sure, I talk about speculation, but it's not my speculation. I don't talk about something unless I have proof of what that really is, because that's just who I am. It doesn't matter about other people. I'm a loner, obviously, because nobody's contacted me to do any kind of interviews or anything like that. So obviously, I'm not cool enough for that, but that's okay. I'll still keep doing what I do. Until next time, everybody, keep your family safe, keep yourself safe, and be aware of your surroundings, because you just never know who's lurking. Peace out.